All I remember is the pain. A searing, blinding white pain that ripped me from reality. They say it was the snowfall, the slick road, and a driver who simply missed the red light. The accident, the lamppost. And me, reduced to a fragment of my former self, my life before? Ordinary. Bustling, full of plans and trivialities that had seemed incredibly important at the time. I was a project manager, building a career and about to move into a new apartment. Now I was just a patient, a bed number, a medical chart. The first few days blurred into a murky, indistinct nightmare, punctuated by injections and the groans of my ward mates. I couldn't move. Every effort sent a sharp, agonizing spasm through my leg and a dull, heavy ache through my head. I hated the helplessness. I hated the hospital smell, a mix of antiseptic, fear, and bad coffee. I hated the white ceiling that had witnessed my most bitter tears. And then he appeared. The doctor. I didn't notice him right away. In my semi-darkness, all the doctors were just shadows in green or blue scrubs, bringing either a sliver of relief or a new wave of pain. But he was different. His name was Maxim. The name sounded serious, like a verdict or a promise. I first heard his voice when he was making rounds after his night shift. He spoke quietly, but every word was precise, like the beat of a metronome. He didn't coddle me. He didn't offer the performative sympathy that somehow always made me feel worse. He simply spoke of facts. How the healing was progressing, the rehabilitation plan, and the reality that I would have to learn to walk again. It will be hard, Anastasia, but this is not an end. It's a beginning. I won't tell you that you'll be running a marathon in a week, but you will walk. I promise, he said, looking straight into my eyes. His eyes. That's what I noticed first. Deep gray, with a rare, tiny golden sparkle that appeared when he was intensely focused on X-rays or my lab results. They were the eyes of a man who had seen too much suffering, yet hadn't forgotten how to see a person in it, not just a case. From that day on, I started waiting for his arrival. The morning didn't begin with breakfast or the nurse's early rounds. It began with the anticipation of his footsteps in the corridor. He always arrived at the same time, clockwork precision. Punctual, composed, with neatly trimmed dark hair and a light, barely noticeable shadow of stubble. When he leaned over me to listen to my lungs or check a dressing, I caught a faint, elusive scent, not hospital smell, but something fresh, woody, like a frozen forest. I started trying to look presentable, as much as one can in hospital pajamas and with severe injuries. I asked the nurse to bring me a small mirror. I tried to comb my tangled hair and even used the last remnants of my mother's lipstick to look, well, alive, for him, only for him. My heart would contract into a tiny, ridiculous lump every time he entered. It was so foolish, falling in love with your doctor, with your savior. It wasn't the kind of ordinary crush I knew before the accident, the flirting, the dates, the light butterflies. This was trust, absolute, primal trust that slowly grew into something more. He held my life in his hands. He managed my pain and my future. And he did it so calmly, so confidently, that I felt safe for the first time in a long time. One day, he came in when I was crying, not loudly, just buried in my pillow. The tears were from despair. The physical therapist said my muscles were atrophying faster than expected. Maxim sat on the chair beside the bed, not turning on the light. The room was bathed in dimness. Anastasia, what is wrong? His voice was gentle, like a whisper. I couldn't speak, just shook my head. He waited. He didn't rush me. After a minute, he handed me a tissue box. I understand how you feel. Despair is part of the process. But it must not stop you. I can't. I'm afraid I won't be able to walk, doctor, I choked out, feeling so weak, so pathetic. He took my hand, carefully, professionally, but his touch was warm. I know how frightening it is, but you are strong. You have an incredible will to live. I've seen your X-rays. I've seen how you've handled this. You will get through this. I won't let you give up, he said, squeezing my palm. It was the first time he had crossed the unwritten line between doctor and patient. The touch was brief, but it burned away all the remaining doubts in me. From that day on, our communication changed. It deepened. During rounds, we began talking about more than just fractures and stitches. He asked about my job, about my dreams, about the first thing I would do when I left the hospital. I'll go to a concert. I love jazz, I answered one day. He smiled. It wasn't the obligatory polite smile. It was a genuine, warm smile that lit up his face and made him incredibly handsome. Jazz, I love it too. My favorite instrument is the saxophone, he confided. That small revelation, that shared detail, felt like an entire universe to me. We were two people, not just a doctor and his patient. He started bringing me books. Scientific journals on architecture. I had mentioned my interest. He didn't just toss them on the bedside table. He left small notes on the bookmarks. Interesting article on steel structures. Maybe it will inspire your rehab. I knew he was risking something, a breach of ethics. But he did it so cautiously, so delicately, that it felt like a life raft in the middle of the ocean. My heart was racing with a silent, secret hope. I began to notice every little thing, the way he adjusted his glasses on the bridge of his nose, how he rubbed the back of his neck when he was tired, how he always wore different colored socks under his strict suit. It was so sweet, so human. He never talked about his personal life, and I didn't ask. I was afraid of scaring away this fragile, barely visible connection between us. I imagined his life. Endless shifts, complex surgeries, coffee on the run, and maybe someone waiting for him at home. The thought tightened my throat with the icy grip of jealousy. But I chased it away. I had to focus on walking, on getting better. That was the only way to earn his attention outside these wide walls. My crutch training began. It was humiliating. One step and I fall. Again. Tears. Anger. Maxim wasn't my physical therapist, but he often stopped by the gym, just to check on progress. He watched me wince in pain, watched my hands tremble from exertion, watched me curse the world for my helplessness. One more step, Nastia. I believe in you, he would say, standing slightly apart, yet his presence gave me strength. One day, I nearly fell. My crutches slipped out from under me. I closed my eyes, bracing for a new impact and pain, but it didn't happen. Strong hands caught me under the elbows. We stood like that, pressed close together for a few seconds. His breathing was rapid. I felt his strength, his warmth. His hand was slightly trembling. He quickly stepped back, his face completely impassive. Professional, but his gray eyes betrayed him. They were dark, full of tension. Be careful, your muscles are tired. That's enough for today, he said, his voice a little husky. Thank you, doctor, I whispered, feeling my cheeks flush. Maxim. Call me Maxim when we're not on the ward. It's okay, he corrected me. I was on cloud 9, Maxim. Saying his name felt sweet like forbidden fruit. Weeks passed. The rehabilitation progressed. I stopped being just a broken femur. I was slowly becoming Anastasia again. And then came the day of my discharge. Mixed emotions flooded me, the joy of freedom, and the dread of separation. I sat, ready to leave, in my old but clean clothes. I limped slightly, but I was walking by myself. Maxim came to say goodbye. He was in casual clothes jeans, a turtleneck, and he looked different. The unreachable doctor had been replaced by a merely handsome, slightly tired man. You did very well, Nastia. You surprised me. You did incredible work, he said, shaking my hand. His handshake was long, warm. It lingered a second longer than necessary. Thank you, Maxim. You saved me. In every sense. I tried to keep my voice steady. I felt that if he left now, I would lose him forever. I had to say something. I know this is very unprofessional, but if you ever want to go to that jazz concert, I handed him a small piece of paper folded into quarters, my private phone number. I looked at him, my heart pounding like a trapped bird. I was ready to sink into the floor with shame if he refused. He took the paper. Slowly, carefully he placed it inside the inner pocket of his jacket. He didn't smile. He just looked at me with his penetrating gray gaze. "I will call you, Nastya, I promise," he said. And he left. I was left alone, my mother already waiting for me in the car. I thought it was a polite rejection. That he wouldn't call. He just didn't want to hurt his patient's feelings. A week passed. The days dragged on endlessly. I felt as though I was back in the real world, but a part of me remained there, in the hospital room. I woke up and checked my phone first thing. Nothing. I decided I had to stop thinking about him. I had to move on. Walk. Work. On Friday evening, I was sitting at home, trying to relax in front of the TV. The phone rang, an unfamiliar number. I answered. "Hello? Hello, Nastya. It's Maxim." His voice came through. Deep, low, and as precise as it was in the operating theater. My heart simply stopped, and then broke free from its cage. "Maxim, hi." I felt a blush rush over my face. "Sorry it took so long. It was a very complicated week. I just got off duty. I'm free, I'm clean, and I want to break all the rules," he chuckled. I could picture that smile. "I remember the jazz. You know, there is a small club in the city. They play on Saturdays. Will you be able to manage it?" He asked. Yes, I can. I will go." "I will run if I have to," I blurted out. He laughed, lightly and infectiously. It was the first time I'd ever heard him laugh. "No need to run. I will pick you up. At 7. Is that okay?" "Okay," I whispered. I hung up the phone and clutched it in my hand. Tears welled up in my eyes, but they were tears of happiness. This was not just a call. This was a second chance. A chance not just for life, but for a life I hadn't dared to dream of. I looked at my reflection in the mirror again. No longer a patient. No longer a victim. Just a woman invited on a date by the man who saved her life. I knew our story wouldn't be simple. It would be built on pain, on healing, and on broken rules. But I was ready for it. Because when we met, my pulse started beating again. And now, it was beating to the rhythm of his name, Maxim. I reached for my closet, choosing the prettiest dress I owned. Tomorrow evening was going to be the beginning. The beginning of our story. A story that started on a hospital bed and promised to be the most beautiful melody of my life.